The Carolina Hurricanes win 4-2 over the Nashville Predators in the first game of their two-game series set. I'm recording this right after the game just finished. I think this is like the quickest I've ever recorded after a game, so this is absolutely fresh in my mind. There's not a whole lot to go on for post-game coverage, so hopefully we don't miss anything. Let's not wait around though. Let's get right into what happened before the game. So before the game, we learned Jordan Stahl's still on the COVID protocol list. Again, no word about when he's going to come off of that. We're basically just playing a waiting game at this point. Jordan Martinook gets bumped up to the second line center to be on Svechnikov's line. And James Reimer makes his first start of the season against, on the opposite end, Pekka Rinne for the Nashville Predators. First period starts off and the Canes are pretty shaky. I think the whole first 2-3 minutes of the game, like Reimer didn't see any pucks coming his way. And then we started getting into this whole series of wacky 4-on-4 double penalties called mess of a first period this was. So Warren Foegele gets a hooking call on Matt Duchene, and it was a very late whistle from Wes McCauley. If you watch the replay on it, it's literally like he hooks him, like he hooked him, whatever. But it's not until a second and a half later and Duchene throws his arms up that Wes McCauley actually calls anything. And like literally 5-10 seconds into the power play for the Predators, Duchene goes to the box as well. On the 4-on-4 that ensued, Svechnikov and Aho combined for a little mini chance that Rinne ended up saving. And one thing I really noticed about the 4-on-4 and what happened right after these penalties is the feet were actually moving a little bit more. They weren't as stagnant as they were in the first few minutes. There was a great chance for Martin Necas to just shoot the puck when he was dead in the slot in the first period, and he overpassed it trying to find, I believe it was Dougie Hamilton behind him. On the same sequence, we've got Nino Niederreiter being a pest with Matthias Ekholm. Those two guys just battled that whole shift. It was a very long shift for the Preds, but Nino's in front, basically taking cross checks and battling in front, which is good. He didn't take a stupid penalty. He wasn't trying to be dumb. He was literally just trying to take a defenseman out of the play. And then we went into our second portion of these weird penalty things. Trocheck gets a tripping call on Duchene. And then as soon as the Preds power play starts, Johansson gets an interference penalty. Now on the 4-on-4, Philip Forsberg came off the bench and just wristed this shot that looked like a complete laser. And it hits the crossbar. It goes past Reimer, hits the crossbar. I think it was a crossbar or post. I'm not even sure. I think there was 2 crossbars in this game for the Preds. Nick Cousins had one a little bit later. But it stays out. Right towards the end of the period, Svechnikov takes a penalty, so the Preds will open up the second period on the power play. And even towards the end of the first period, the Canes just kind of weathered the storm, got out of that period. So we go into the second period tied 0-0. Second period starts, and it's been just typical of the Canes so far this year, even dating back into the bubble and back even to last January/February before the stoppage happened. They just stop. They just stop playing. For 20 minutes, they just become invisible. I'm not sure if it was actually 20 minutes in this game. It was probably a lot less, and that probably contributed to the final score. Early on in the period, though, Dougie Hamilton with the first of his 2 brutal pinches in this game. He pinches in, and a huge chance for Nashville comes as a result. Nashville was basically just taking over the game at this point. There was a point of this period where there was just this excessively long shift. I have to figure it was probably like a minute and a half the Preds had the puck in the Canes zone. And at the end of the whole thing, Ryan Johansson had a great chance. Kind of just busted through the slot. Guys were so tired, he was able to just walk right through, got a shot off, and it was a nice pad save by Reimer. Preds took a penalty, sending the Canes to the power play. I think this was pretty much about the midpoint of the second at this point. There had been so much happening, not good, of course, for the Canes in the middle of this, or the beginning of this period. But on the power play, Svechnikov from that high, his strong side circle just drills a puck, wrister clean right through Rinne, and the Canes have a 1-0 lead. And right as we're watching the replay, basically as soon as they cut out of it, boom, Philip Forsberg had scored, and it's a tie game. This goal was just so deflating at this point. Oh my god, it was just brutal. Just as soon as we get a lead, as soon as things start turning in the Canes' favor, immediately there's that goal and just shuts everything back down. Period ends 1-1, so all the Canes need to do is win 20 minutes, and they'll start that final 20-minute segment of the game on the power play as Alex Schead, the former Carolina Hurricane, in his own right, takes a penalty for the Nashville Predators. Again, at this point, as we head into the third, pretty much Reimer was the only reason we were in this game. I think you can look at Svechnikov or even Aho, who had a really good portion of this game, but I still think Reimer was the best player. Coming into the third, it became apparent that Teravainen was benched or hurt, or we're not exactly sure, but there's a tweet that I'll get to in the tweets in the wrap-up section that might address it a little bit further. Another bad Hamilton pinch, his second of the game, kind of led to this Nick Cousins shot that, again, goes over Reimer's glove side, but hits the crossbar just like Philip Forsberg did in the first. And on the other end, I was kind of worried, actually, that the Cousins shot had actually gone in. On the broadcast, it kind of looked like it might have been that back bar, but it really just hit the corner of the net and just bounced straight down. So it kind of looked like it was the back bar. I was worried that as Trocheck comes back the other way, forces a turnover, and scores on a snipe on Rinne, that this was actually all going to get called back. But thankfully, that's not the case, as Trocheck's snipe from the hash marks is going to count, and the Canes have a 2-1 lead. Almost immediately after the goal, though, the Canes kind of return to that flat-footed thing. I don't know why. It's like when they score a goal, they lose all ability. Matt Duchene gets a great chance just by going around Shea like he's not even there. And another big stop for James Reimer. Shea takes a penalty at kind of the end of this whole shift on Alex Schead. The Canes are able to kill the penalty, and almost immediately after, there's this great play that the Preds have set up. I think it was Victor Arvidsson literally had a tap in if this pass gets across. Jake Gardiner reaches his stick out, deflects it, starts this play, and on the other end, a 2-on-1. Svechnikov passes it over to Aho, and it's 3-1 for the Carolina Hurricanes. Again, so the lead now has been stretched. The Canes are looking comfortable. Warren Foegele takes a penalty on Dante Fabro. And just 10 seconds into that power play for the Nashville Predators, Victor Arvidsson snipes one, and suddenly it's 3-2, and we're looking, it's a little bit close. Foegele did redeem himself a little bit after this bad penalty. Him and Foss combined for a couple good chances on Rinne, but Rinne stopped both of them. Ryan Ellis had this great chance as well, where he just was left wide open coming off the point. Nobody saw him, the pass into the slot, and again, James Reimer there makes a huge save. And very shortly after that, Nino Niederreiter gets his second of the season, so he gets an empty netter and seals the game for a 4-2 win for the Carolina Hurricanes. Just wrapping up the game, I thought the Canes had a really good third period. It didn't start well, and after each goal, they did have about a minute where they were just kind of flat-footed, and the momentum kind of swung in Nashville's favor. Andrei Svechnikov was the best skater for the Canes in this one. Just unbelievable, this guy. Every game, it doesn't matter who he's playing with, and this is very important. There's been a lot of talk about reuniting the Aho, Svechnikov, and Teravainen line from last year. It doesn't even seem like he necessarily needs to be on that line, on the top line with Aho and Teravainen at this stage. He's generating just as much offense by being with Trocheck and Nichis at this point that I don't even though Rod did go to that line, actually just a hybrid line, Aho, Svechnikov, and McGinn by the end of the game, I kind of think it's good to leave Svechnikov away from that. So Reimer was, in my mind, the first star of the game. He kept the Canes in this 4 or 5 times. I lost count. Like, he was so good in this one. He's been one of the top backups in the league this whole way through. Now let's get to some tweets. So the first few tweets that I'm going to pull up here, I'm going to put on the bottom of the screen a little bit bigger. I'm going to go over the score and the up next stuff down there. But these were just tweets that were happening during the game. First one from Alex O'Hari at Future Canes on Twitter. My thorough, in-depth, extensive analysis of that first period. Like, again, coming out of the first period, that was not a confidence builder at all. 0-0. It seemed like they were lucky to get out of the period. And again, James Reimer was the reason why they probably weren't down 1 or 2 goals. This tweet from at Canes Stats. The players not named Sebastian Aho are 1 for 10 in the faceoffs right now. Not a good look without Stahl in the lineup. And this right now is becoming a huge problem, as the Canes aren't a strong faceoff team when they don't have Jordan Stahl, their captain. And this is why we've been really looking at what's been the issue of why Stahl is constantly in that first or second line spot when he should really be in that third line, like solidified as a third line center. And it's this: the Carolina Hurricanes just do not win faceoffs when Jordan Stahl's not playing. I think Trip Tracy had it on the broadcast at one point that they were 25 for 37, so they'd only won 12 of 37 draws in the third period, and that was late into the third period. I'm not sure what that finished at, but of course that's not even nearly good enough. Like, good enough would have been like 48% on the draws in this game. And obviously context has to be applied to who the Canes are matched up against in those faceoffs. Matt Duchene is one of the better faceoff men around this league, but guys like Ryan Johansson simply aren't. So in that regard, it's a little bit disappointing that the Canes couldn't have brought that percentage considerably up higher. This is where I would hope there's maybe somebody that could be hired around the league. My first instinct is always Manny Malhotra, but he's in Toronto. But getting somebody in there, and I mean, Jesus Christ, Rod Brind'Amour, for God's sakes, he's a face-off. Like, that was one of his best traits as a hockey player. They've got to really start looking at this, because if Stahl's not in the lineup for a considerable amount of time, this is going to really bite them against pretty much every team in this division. Maybe not Chicago. And this is the tweet I wanted to get to. From Michael Smith. So at M. Smith Canes on Twitter, Teuvo Teravainen has only logged 3 shifts, all on the power play in the second and third periods. He's doing some skating in the commercial breaks, but I have to imagine he might be among the nicked up guys Rod Brind'Amour referenced this morning. And I'm seeing this tweet just as a follow-up when I'm doing all this. Again, I might miss some stuff just because I'm recording this right after the game. But Michael Smith actually went further and said Rod Brind'Amour said Teravainen did indeed tweak something. Status to be decided for tomorrow. So whether or not what this means, if it was a tweak and he missed the rest of the game from the second-ish period on, that would lead me to believe this is more than just like a minor tweak. This might be a week or two, something. It could be a groin injury. We didn't see any plays that would lead us to be like, to look at and go, oh, that's where Teravainen got injured. So right now we're just going to kind of wait and see what happens with Turbo. Anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this Canes game review with the 4-2 win against the Nashville Predators. We'll be back with the game review for game 2 of this series set against Nashville probably Wednesday, some point on Wednesday, most likely. Anyways, again, guys, thank you so much for watching. Click like if you like the video. Subscribe to the channel if you want more Canes content. And as always, I will see you guys on the next one.